The RitFit Gator is one of the most talked about adjustable benches right now. Some people say it's the most versatile bench in the price range. Others say it's trying to do a bit too much. Today, we're breaking down what it actually does well, what it doesn't, and who this bench is really for, so you can decide if it belongs in your home gym. Quick disclosure up front. RitFit provided the Gator Bench for review, but as always, everything you're about to hear is our honest experience. And if this review helps you and you decide to grab one, code PAIRED saves you 10% at RitFit. We're going to remind you once again at the end. But all right, let's get into the Gator. At -7% decline, this bench is not trying to be a true decline bench, but it's also not a powerlifting bench. This matters because it sets expectations correctly. This isn't meant to replace a dedicated decline setup, and it's not pretending to. And if you're training competitive powerlifting numbers, this probably isn't the bench you're doing your heavy competition prep on anyways. This is a general purpose, multi-use adjustable bench that prioritizes versatility and accessory work, not specialization. Okay, so bench height matters to everyone. And weight matters too, especially when it comes to maneuverability. So we used a luggage scale so we could show the felt weight when lifting the front of the bench to move it. In flat bench mode, the height is just under 17.5 inches from the floor to the top of the pad. That puts it right where you'd want it. The listed product weight is 109.1 pounds. When we lifted the front, while the bench was completely flat, the luggage scale showed almost 45 pounds at its heaviest. But once the bench gets to the angle where you're actually going to move it, it drops to about 28 to 35 pounds, depending on your height and what feels comfortable. That tells you the full weight isn't felt when moving it, and it's not front-loaded like some benches that are a nightmare to maneuver. The total 3-pad length is just under 49.5 inches. The headpiece is 9 inches, the middle pad is just under 26, and the seat pad is 12 inches. The back pad is just under 12 inches wide. Now, there is a 2-inch gap between pads, but the hinge is recessed about an inch below pad height. This is something that gets called out a lot, and it's an easy criticism to make without really criticizing anything. It's a safe criticism. Personally, because the pads aren't firm and the hinge is recessed, I never feel it. I don't feel like I'm sitting in a crease, and it's not something I worry about at all on this bench. Now, if the hinge were higher or the pads were firmer so you could actually feel the ridge, sure, that might matter, but that's not the case here. And another criticism we hear all the time is the vinyl. Some say it feels really slippery or it's cheap feeling. Personally, I don't mind it. This is a $330 bench. Is it the grippiest vinyl on the market? No. It's not the newer ultra grippy vinyl used on more expensive benches. Would I like that newer vinyl? Of course I would. Who wouldn't want it? But this is a general purpose, multi-use bench. If you're lifting so much weight that you're worried about digging your shoulders in for perfect press, the real question is, why you bought this instead of a bench designed specifically for that? For 98% of us using this bench, the vinyl won't be an issue. It's not a powerlifting bench, and it's not pretending to be one. There have also been reports that some benches had a mismanufactured ladder on the decline portion, causing the spine to rest on the edge of the ladder instead of seating fully into the groove. Our bench, luckily, did not have that issue, and others have reported the same. To my understanding, RitFit is aware of it, and if yours does have the problem, contacting them should get it resolved. Another question that comes up is the center post in decline. On ours, the center post sits about half an inch lower than the head pad at -7. But the rail system is seated properly, and functionally, it's no different than incline. The center post isn't supporting it there either. You're relying on the spine and the ladder system. Because of that, I'm not worried about it. And at -7% decline, not having leg rollers isn't an issue. Maximum incline is at 85%, and there's a stop at 30%. That 30% setting is right in the 20 to 35% sweet spot for incline pressing. More adjustability would be nice, but more adjustability also means more cost. And this is a value-based general purpose bench. It's got a 1,600-pound rating that is definitely a static flat rating, not dynamic moving weight on incline. If you're pushing competitive powerlifting numbers, you wouldn't be using this bench for that anyways. You'd be using it as an accessory bench. The rollers themselves are just under 8 inches long. They're essentially standard leg rollers, smartly repurposed for just this setup. So the rollers screw into a raised portion along the side of the spine with 4 mounting locations that give you some height adjustability. You know, my biggest call out is that they sit about 1 inch below pad level, so they're recessed. Personally, I don't love that feel. I'd prefer them flush with the pad, and it does create a small exercise-specific limitation. When you're not using them, they mount on the back foot of the base, completely out of the way. So where they really shine is with the tricep braced against them, especially for incline curls. That's easily their #1 use. Spider curls work well. Barbell preacher curls also work since your elbows are supported by the rollers instead of the 12-inch wide back pad. People are going to get creative and come up with other uses, but for us, these are almost entirely about eliminating shoulder involvement during curls. Using them for floor presses isn't ideal because the pads are recessed back from the main back pad. You end up with more pec stretch rather than truly isolating the triceps. So the folding headrest has adjustments that are locked in by a push pin. At the full 85% incline, this bench works very well for chest-supported cable rows on our Viper. Military presses also work, and this is where the bench starts to function like a utility bench. It's not a perfect utility bench. The height is still a bit tall, but that's the trade-off with a multi-use design. It won't be perfect for everything, but it gives you a usable option for a lot of movements. Chest-supported rows and rear delt fly variations work great here. So what the headrest really does is give you support when you need it and gets out of the way when you don't. It's a clearance and multi-use feature, not a performance feature. So this is the part that actually matters because features don't mean anything if the bench doesn't feel solid when you're training on it. All of my benching on this has been done using our VTS in flat, incline, and decline. I'm nowhere near the 1,600-pound static rating, and neither are you. And I'm not trying to find out a dynamic limit. Realistically, I'll never get there. So this isn't about chasing numbers, it's about feel. If you've been following 8 weeks to a bigger bench, which based on the views, you probably aren't, you know I'm dealing with a shoulder injury. So this bench isn't being tested by some jacked YouTuber slamming PRs. It's being tested by someone managing load, running peptides, and trying not to make his shoulder hate him more than it already does. So when it's in flat mode, there's zero wobble. No side-to-side movement, no front-to-back shift, no flex you can feel through the pad. Incline feels exactly the same, stable and predictable. In decline, it's still solid. And at -7%, I don't feel the need for leg rollers to lock in. At 10%, you could probably still get away without them, but I'd still prefer them. And anything lower than that, I wouldn't press without leg rollers. At the weights I'm using, I haven't had any issues with the pad feeling unstable or slick. Is it the grippiest vinyl out there? No. But for context, I also own the AbMat bench grip cover that permanently lives on my Prime Shorty because that bench has slick vinyl too. You know, and that's considered one of my Prime bench choices. Prime, it's the pun intended. Slick vinyl by itself isn't a deal breaker. It's just something you solve if it matters to you. If you want one bench that can do a lot of things, well, this makes sense. If you train at home, mix flat, incline, decline, and accessory work, and value versatility over specialization, this bench checks a lot of boxes. If you already own a top-tier flat or competition bench that you love, this isn't replacing it. Where it really shines is as an accessory bench, especially if you want supported curls, chest-supported rows, or overhead work without needing more rack attachments. I've seen it on sale for $323.99. It's currently back to $359.99, but code PAIRED saves you 10%, which brings it right back down to $324. In today's market, that's a great price for a bench like this. If this review helped you decide to pick one up, our affiliate link and code are in the description. It doesn't cost you anything, and it helps support the channel. So Make sure to subscribe for future drops and check out our Fringe tour showing here now. I'm gonna catch you on the next one.